Please state your name and address for the record.
Christopher Hicks, 444 Woodward Court.
Thank you.
So I'm here to talk some more about the baby box, gentlemen. And I want to also share some things that Joe Dale said at a Union Township Republican meeting when the other two trustees were out of the room, so there was no open meeting issue. One was that the possibility of moving the box to the police station where there's more of a guaranteed 24/7 person present, and mothballing the one at the fire station until and unless any code changes took place. The second thing was that Safe Haven Baby Box would be billed for the cost of the extra staffing, but once the whole situation is resolved, I would just like to point out that based on the numbers that Mr. Campbell had given me, at $722.88 a day, we are now over $70,000 for an extra fireman to be staffed at Station 50, just because of the baby box, so that there is somebody, which I think is correct, per the Ohio code, there to give immediate aid to an infant that might be surrendered and have medical issues into a box. And then finally, he commented that Terry Johnson and Gene Schmidt are working to resolve issues. I thought those were all valuable additions, and I appreciated Mr. Dill's comments. What I have done, had the box here been located at the hospital or the police station, the $70,000 worth of staffing costs would not have occurred, would not have been an issue, would not have been in play, because it would have been site planned to be at a location where there was somebody present to give immediate aid. What I've brought is two examples of signs. Anybody that goes, I'd encourage people to go look at the box at Station 50. The signs are all about a private company. They're all about just surrendering your baby. There's a number there. There's no information about options for Safe Haven, how to get help if you want to keep your baby, how you learn about open or closed adoption and options that I think we owe it to have women have that information available to them before they make a life-changing decision of putting a baby in a box. So I proposed a long time ago that there should be some additional signage at the box. And my wife, who's an artist, as some of you know, made an example. And I had an original example. I'll hold it up this way, but I'll read it. She made an example of a sign that could be at where the box is. This sign currently assumes a box that would be at the police station, not at the fire station. And I'll hold it up so you guys can see it. And then I will read what it says is, stop, before surrendering your baby, know your options. Help is available, including prenatal care, medical delivery, post-delivery care, and help if you wish to keep your baby. Ask for help here, or call Help Me Grow at 1-800-755-4569. By the way, for people that don't know, Help Me Grow is a state program to help people, women in need and in crisis. The second part, I'll hold it up again, says you can confidentially surrender your baby 30 days or younger here, person to person, or at any police station, fire station, or hospital. You can call 911 to have a first responder come to you to surrender your baby 30 days or younger confidentially. That second point, I think, goes to the issue of one of the biggest issue we really have with Safe Haven in the United States, but in Ohio in particular, isn't $10,000 boxes and $70,000 in staffing. It's just basic information that people know that there's options and what they can do. The third part, which is here, says you can surrender your baby in the baby box 30 days or younger. If you do, please take the time to complete the optional anonymous form, Voluntary Medical History for Safe Havens, which is an Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services form that doesn't put down any identifying information about the mother, but is where they fill in things like, is there a history of heart disease? Is there this or that within a family? And as you can imagine, anybody here that's a parent would know that would be very valuable for people to know that information or have it shared. The next point says, if shortly after surrendering your baby, you change your mind, call Claremont for Kids, that's the phone number, and tell them you seek reunification. One of the things that I've learned, I think other than a lawyer, I'm probably the biggest expert on safe havening in Ohio right now, because I've talked with tons of people about this, is that on order of 25% of mothers who surrender a baby through Safe Haven, within a brief period of time, change their mind and seek reunification. That's why professional Safe Haven never does press conferences, never does press releases when there's a baby surrendered, so that if the mother comes back and wants her baby back, there's not pressure to not do that. When there's press conferences, as you guys have probably seen them, that's all the mom is a hero because she gave up her baby in the box. That makes it hard for somebody to come forward. And about a quarter of all mothers, within a week or two after a surrender in safe haven, national statistics come back and want the baby back, change their mind about that surrender. And then the next point says, you can give up your baby for open or closed adoption, even older than 30 days. Open adoption means you keep contact. Closed adoption means you do not. Call Claremont for Kids to learn more. One of the things I've also learned, I had a friend in high school that was adopted, but I've never really been that close with somebody that's an adult that was adopted, is that when you're adopted, I don't know if somebody here was, but what I've been told by adoptee rights advocates is that there's a lot of issues when there's been closed adoption, because no matter how loving your new family is, there's always a question as who was mom and dad, and wanting to reunite, especially when you're older. So today, the in vogue would be that a woman come forward early, get proper prenatal care, get counseling, have a proper medical delivery, and then they would steer them towards open adoption, either keeping their baby or have open adoption, which means there's still contact between the mother and the baby even after it's adopted, which the medical and mental health professionals say adoption's not a perfect scenario for anybody, but that's by far the best scenario now, is that when it's closed and secretive, it creates a lot of mental health issues, both in the parent and in the child who gets adopted. And then the last thing on here says, need medical help. The closest hospital is Claremont Mercy Hospital, 3,000 Hospital Drive, Batavia, Ohio. And what I found is that if the boxes were actually getting the babies that Miss Kelsey and Safe Haven Baby Box would indicate, people that, had their baby in the car, have issues, dropped it off, those babies in real life almost always have significant medical issues. And the mothers themselves have significant medical issues, like respiratory distress syndrome, traumatic birth. There's a list of about a dozen medical conditions and that's why, frankly, places that I've talked to that do safe haven in other states are actually confused by what's happening with these boxes, because they see that actual real situations of a woman in real distress, a lot of times there's drug use, mental health issues, and the babies almost always they see have significant medical issues. Whereas to date, and there's somebody that keeps track of it, these boxes and the 21 surrenders ever in the history of boxes, none in Ohio, there has never been ever in press releases, because they do press releases, one baby that had a medical issue that was surfaced in a press release, which makes it kind of odd based on what happens in other states. The other thing I did, and my wife was kind enough to make a sign for me, is that if we're going to have a baby box, say at the police station, wouldn't it make sense to have a sign on every other fire station, or if we had more than one police station, which I don't think we do, about where to go with the baby? So this one says Safe Haven available here. Just so anybody knows, Safe Haven is available at every police station, every fire stations, or if I saw an officer on the street, and I had a baby 30 days surrender, you can give a baby to an officer on the street. That's Ohio law. You can do it at any hospital. So all of our fire stations and our police station were already safe haven locations. Other parts of the country, they don't even take this part off. I'll kind of hit it, which is about the box. They find that signs that cost $50 to $100 are more effective than $10,000 boxes. That the issue is not boxes, the issue is information. And young women knowing about these things before the need, before the situation, before they're desperate. So as they're growing up, they know that there's these kind of options available. But this one says you can confidentially surrender your baby up to 30 days. Ring bell. If no answer, call 911 or go to a hospital. Need help, call Help Me Grow. Anonymous baby box available at, and that's the police station address on there. It's kind of curious, isn't it, that the Safe Haven Baby Box Company sells boxes for $10,000, but doesn't provide signs like this to put on your other fire stations. Why do they do that? Because they want to sell more boxes. Their goal is a financial goal to sell $10,000 boxes wherever and whenever they can. So, just in a couple closing thoughts, I hope you appreciate those signs. I'd like to see you guys took action on columbarium stuff in the meeting when somebody presented. I'd like to see, I've offered to pay for those signs. If we really care about women and babies, we would want signs like that. I realize there may be drafts, there might need to be edits. Usually if I do something, there's some error gonna happen, or typo gonna happen, but I think those are pretty close to what would be informative and what would show respect for women. Not kind of a box that's the last image a woman would have is slamming a door on her baby. And maybe realizing later that she was never told about other options. She was never told that she could call a number and get financial assistance to keep her baby, that she could go to places to get counseling, that she could do open adoption and still have a connection with that baby later. Can you imagine what it would feel like to realize when you're older that you were never told that stuff? You were never told that stuff? Apart from that, I've brought up some issues that I find with Safe Haven Baby Box. One of them is they use babies in fundraising events. They have their own private registry. Ms. Kelsey seems to somehow know about every baby that's ever been surrendered in her box. She calls them her babies. And she uses them in on-stage fundraising events, dancing and stuff. It's like a circus. We should be offended by that. We should make sure that in our township, if there ever is a baby surrendered in a box, that confidentiality means confidentiality. It doesn't mean having press releases. It doesn't mean having big press events. It doesn't mean giving the information to a third party about a baby that's just been surrendered. It's so ironic that on one side you would have somebody say, we need complete confidentiality of a box, and the same person wants to do a big press splash whenever there's a baby surrendered. Why do they do that? Because they want to sell more boxes. The press events help them to generate pipeline to sell more of the boxes at $10,000 a piece. There's a lot of other things that I have brought up. I brought up hiding the information, but another thing that people should be aware of is the hotline number on the building. So there's a hotline. The hotline is staffed by activists, not trained medical and mental health professionals. Think about that. So on the side chief of your fire station, there's a phone number that if a woman calls it, she might think she's getting some medical or governmental agency, and what she's getting is an activist hotline. These are all things. I realized, Joe, you made a comment in the meeting on Tuesday, I think it was, that, you know, you live and you learn. You know, and there's things that, you know, and I'm not questioning the intent of the box. I'm not questioning the heart. What I'm questioning is, now that there's water under the bridge, do we realize that this is a more complex issue? And it's something that our society needs to address, more than just throwing a box in a fire station. And then if we're adults, we have to step back and say, what's actually right for women and babies? And how can Union Township be part of changing the cycle from just putting more of these boxes in? So I think it's a dangerous situation right now when we put these in and we may look at it politically versus look at it at what is the right thing for mothers and babies. Another important thing the chief knows is the notion that a $10,000 appliance that we're leasing, not buying, that has to plug into a 15-amp circuit is not UL listed or safety tested is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It's wrong. These things are wrong. And at some point, men or women, however you want to, that are adults need to step back and sit and look at what's right and wrong. So to close, I think I'm morally and ethically right on these points. And I'm actually glad that this has come up, because I think somebody along the way of these boxes, you know, there's a lot of them in Indiana, there's only 7 in Ohio right now, that somebody step back and look at what's going on. The woman involved is very bombastic, very in your face with these things. I've been attacked in 7 TikTok videos. The state of Ohio, ODH, has been now attacked in about 12 TikTok videos by her. And so it's hard to stand up and say, you know, we should look at what's right and wrong about what's going on here. So what I would say is we should move the box to the police station, where we know there's going to be a person there that can render immediate aid to an infant that is put in the box. That should be non-negotiable. If it's worth $15,000 for a box, it's worth to put it someplace where there's a human being that can render immediate aid, not someplace where we're counting on some untested alarm system to send a first responder that we don't know what the response time will be. Second thing, is to put signs like the small ones on all of our fire stations and put the big sign or something like it wherever we actually end up having the baby box in Union Township. And the third thing, and I think as important as the other two, is to have the word confidentiality mean confidentiality, which means I've learned from talking to professional people, actual professional people, you don't do press releases and press events all the time when there's a surrender. You keep it quiet. And that the key issues are informational, not money. You know, in our society today, I think a lot, and I'm not pointing at you guys, but a lot of the political class sometimes just thinks throwing money at stuff makes it look like I solved the problem. And these problems are not really about money. And if there's a girl that's putting a baby in a box, a woman putting a baby in a box, and slamming that door, we have to admit our society has failed over and over again that somebody would get to that point. We can't fix it here. We're not going to be able to fix it. But we can at least do the things that make sure, to the best of our ability, women are informed of their options. Women are informed of their options and treated with respect, and that confidentiality means confidentiality. Thank you guys very much for the chance to speak tonight.
I did want to come tonight to address the baby box issue, and again, I'll make this brief. There's a lot of manipulated facts and untruths here. As Mr. Hicks came up here and spoke, a lot of some good ideas. Signs aren't bad, but he is either terminated, retired from IBM. He has no medical background. I worked many years in a hospital. I've taken EMT. I have a lot of law enforcement friends, many firefighters. When women give birth, as you all are fathers, they're not coming to read signs if they're in the mindset of abandoning their baby. They are mentally distressed. They're not going to read a sign. They're going to take a pamphlet. The idea of the baby box is to save a baby. That's what it's there for, period. Drop the baby in, save the baby. And I applaud the fact that you guys are trying to pilot this program, take it, maybe advance it, and get some self-improvement to it, take some good ideas. The problem is when somebody comes up with a good idea that's dogging you on social media constantly, it's hard for you guys to listen. I understand that. So some of the ideas are good. Some of the ideas are just, banter to make you guys look bad. It's become political. We are, as you guys know, Friends of Liberty is we do a UT show. Monica Kelsey will be on our next, I think episode 4, because episode 3 is next Wednesday. So it'll be the one after that. We're going to bring her on. I'm asking you publicly, Trustee Logue, to come, if you can be a part of this, as a member of the board, to speak on behalf of the board while she speaks. But there's a lot of information out there. I've spoken hours with Monica on the phone. She is not political. She came from a background of a baby abandonment. She's doing this because she wants to save babies. And the babies that are being made like, oh, they're making them dance and all that, these are parents that signed consent for those children. They didn't go out looking for these kids. That's a false information. So we want to take and put this video together, get it out to the residents, package it to put it with facts, and we're going to eliminate some of this nonsense that we're getting on Facebook, social media, that's giving you guys bad publicity. Sad thing is we're doing this in an election year. And as you guys know, there's a lot of it at stake this November, and we're focusing on baby boxes. I don't know anything more ignorant than that right now. So hopefully we can get back to business and focus on winning a Senate seat and doing what we need to do, and also getting back to business in the township, looking at some of the things that are going on with some what I feel are bad agreements that were put into place on a previous trustee board, and clean up some of this mess. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. Thank you. Have a good night.
So Chief DEIMLING, there was a statement tonight that the fire department has spent, I think the number was $70,000 for personnel costs for the baby box. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct.
What's the correct number?
So the statement was about the staffing, to put 24-hour staffing, that the dollar amount would be around $70,000. It's actually it's like $1,504 and some change.
$1,504 the correct number, not 70,000.
That is correct. The only time that we had to bring in anybody extra for that staffing of that station was the very first weekend that we were made aware that that there was a difference between the Ohio Revised Code and the Ohio Administrative Code that we were unaware of. Mr. Hicks, brought that to our attention. In fact, I remember it distinctly. I was across the street, actually at Tractor Supply. I was made aware of it. I went over to the firehouse myself and covered it immediately until we could get other people in to cover that weekend. So that weekend, it was a, surprise to us. Obviously, we weren't the only ones that didn't know that. Nobody else in the state of Ohio that had baby boxes before us obviously was aware of that there was a discrepancy between the Ohio Revised Code and the Ohio Administrative Code. Long story short that was the only weekend that we brought somebody extra in, and it was like just over $1,500. Since that time, we've covered it with regular staffing.
So can you elaborate on that a little bit, how you've been able to juggle the staff to cover 24/7 ever since then?
So we have people that are on restricted duty, light duty, people that may be injured on the job or off the job that have restrictions on their employment, on what they can do. They can't function in full service. So we have assigned them down at that station when they're on limited duty. And for any of the time that we can't do that, that's by far the majority of the time is covered by people that are on limited duty or restricted duty. They can't go out and make fire and EMS runs. If that's not the case, there's 6 people assigned to normally between the 2 stations on Old 74, Station 49 and Station 50. If we don't have anybody on restricted duty that we can assign to Station 50 specifically for that detail, then we'll move somebody from Station 49, and then we end up with 3 people at each of the stations. So it's just actually redistributing existing staffing as opposed to bringing in additional staffing specifically to man the baby box detail.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Jones? Chief, appreciate you very much, you and Assistant Chief Fife, and sorry you have to deal with this headache, and but I think it'll be worth it in the long run, and appreciate you very much, sir, and I'm sorry that any issues it's caused, but as always, please let your team know that we love them and care about them very much, and thank you, Chief, very much.
So there was an offer for signs for the baby boxes. Just for the record here, I don't have a problem with that. I appreciate the offer, and I think we ought to talk about, taking them up on it. Regarding relocating the baby box, I'm open to that idea too. I think maybe Chief Diamond would appreciate getting it out of his hair. Maybe that's the right thing to do, so that'd be an additional discussion there.
So I'm just share with you, a couple of things. My point on, you were talking about the baby box and your perspective. Look, I know one thing, our staff, they're experts. As that goes, our staff's working with Ohio Department of Health to make sure that we understand the rules and that the rules are interpreted correctly. So, I think that it has to be allowed some due diligence. I think the way that the Ohio Revised Code was passed and the way in which the administrative code put more additional red tape on it, but it's something to that extent that they've been lax on, creates issues. You got fire chiefs, you got Fire Chiefs Association, et cetera, wanting to do things that are right for their community, and they're the subject matter experts that are out there in the field getting things done, not necessarily someone just putting more and more red tape on something from an office. So it'd be a benefit, I think, to see, let's bring things up to speed. I think it's an easy opportunity to look at the fact that technology has grown. If the fire chief's going to tell me that there's not a safety concern with this, who am I supposed to ask? I mean, if I have a heart attack and I call 911 and the paramedics show up at my house, am I supposed to tell them how to administer, to what's going on with my condition? Now, I was in Iraq. This is what comes to my mind right now. My corpsman, Doc Youngblood, got hit by an IED along a mosque wall in the city of Heat. And he did, as we were bandaging him up, tell us how to administer to his aid, because he's our corpsman. The Marine Corps corpsman is your medic. And we're just, we're done. We're the gun draggers and, knuckle draggers. So, yeah, that's appropriate in that sense. He's telling me how to fix him. But, our subject matter experts is where it lies. I want to afford the staff the time and resources to be able to work through that as appropriate.
I don't regret that baby box 1 minute. And I a little bit disagree. I do want to end your hair, Chief. If I had my preference, I'd like to have one at every one of your fire stations and the police station. What I do regret is maybe the due diligence on it, reason why I pushed it was because 3 babies died last year in the city of Chicago because mothers dropped them off at a firehouse. No one knew they were there. Inclement weather, they died. And my thought, my heart, my mind was I did not want that to happen in Union Township. And the question is, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. We'll get it fixed. I'm completely, I have the 100% confidence in my administrator and our firehouse team that we're going to get this done, and it'll be fixed within the next couple weeks. I think we'll have a resolution soon, and we'll move on from this. But I do not regret it at all, period. And that's my firm stance. And what happened in Chicago will never happen in the residents of 50,000 here in Union Township. And hopefully it's never, ever needed. But if a baby is dropped off, we do have safe haven laws at the firehouse. My God, I want them to have a place to drop. If that is their decision, I want them to have a safe place to drop it at where it's completely safe. And we know the baby's going to be fine. That's a pro-life stance. So sorry the laws are behind the times. That's exactly it. And we didn't know it. So, but the rules that the Department of Health says is that it has to be manned 24 hours. And what it should say is manned or monitored 24 hours. Because the rules have not caught up with technology. But I'm standing firm, and this is a cross I'm going to die on. So I'm just going to leave it at that.